baby.
America does not want to send its sons and daughters to war for Israel. Your inability to name that shows your acceptance as leaders. This is wrong, and nobody wants to fight for Israel.
A reminder to all our
Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America. No one wants to fight for Israel.
His hand! His hand! Oh my God, his hand! You know what? Listen, Marty, you're absolutely correct about that, right? He said those cops need to learn some jujitsu. You know what? Okay, let's analyze this real quick. Okay, let's do a little bit of a breakdown, right? Can these cops, you know, perform in a way where, let's say, they look like at least half decently trained at jujitsu, right? Let's check this out one more time, okay?
As a Marine, stand up for America.
Okay, so if you notice right here, this cop, he's doing pretty good with the body lock right here, right? You know, there's a pretty good body lock right here. But with this body lock position, right, what I would like to see is some trips, right? If you look at his leg right here, right, he could use this leg to sort of trip him back, right, from this body lock position. So this way he could get him down on the ground, right? But what does he do instead? Instead, he's trying to push him forward, and obviously there's other men that are involved in this as well, right? There's also other men that are involved in this as well. I think what would have been good is, let's say, using wrist lock controls, right? Obviously, when it comes to police, right? One of the biggest things that they emphasize on is, you know, wrist control, because obviously they would need to, you know, sort of, you know, put a handcuff on you, right? So in order to put a handcuff on you, you know, they would need to control your wrist. Now, you know who is really proficient at this in MMA? Obviously, Khabib, right? He's extremely proficient in using what you would call the Dagestani handcuff. So the Dagestani handcuff was something that you saw in the Michael Johnson fight, which, by the way, we sort of reacted to a couple of days ago when we were reacting to Snoop Dogg reacting to Khabib's fight at UFC 205, in which he called out Conor McGregor at that time, right? Average Contraction Donkey says, do you think cops need more restraint training? Yes, I absolutely do. And Marty says the same thing on the bottom. He absolutely agrees. Or control a gun. Yeah, all the above, all the above. He says most departments are severely undertrained. Correct. You know what? As a person who's not exactly pro-police in any kind of way, I think that to prevent deaths, right, in ways that, you know, they normally would not have been able to in the past, I think it is important that they train jiu-jitsu. You know what? You know how they have roll call in the police, right? This is something that I've seen in all police shows. Right before they head out into the field, they would have a roll call. I think part of this roll call should have something to the extent of, let's say, doing like at least a 5-minute warm-up of jiu-jitsu. You know how guys sort of warm up in the back locker room before their fight, right? This is something that I think they should try and do. But you're right. Most police departments are severely undertrained. Michael Long says, good morning, everyone. Blessed to see another day, man. You are right about that, man. With all the things that are going on in the world right now, you definitely should feel blessed to wake up to another day and another morning. And also, for me, as a Muslim, another Ramadan, right? You know, getting through this Ramadan, and then after getting through this Ramadan, going into Eid, and then into our normal lives. So here's the thing, right? The question is, does this Marine have any right to do what he did? And my answer may shock you. The answer is simply this. The Marine had absolutely no right. He had absolutely no right to do this whatsoever. Absolutely no right, okay? Number one, this is a hearing, okay? You're allowed to protest, but not during a hearing. You cannot interfere with, number one, a private property. This is a private property. On top of that, this is a government building. You cannot interrupt these things. This is not something that you are allowed to do. Now, his particular stance on being anti-Iran war, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. But I need you guys to understand, okay, that in this country, you are allowed freedom of speech. But I think a lot of you really misunderstand what freedom of speech is, and I think a lot of you overestimate what protests can do. I honestly don't think protests can do anything, okay? This is why I can't get behind a lot of liberals when they go out and they protest, because I know it's going to fall on deaf ears. You're going to get arrested, you're going to get maced, you're going to get beat down by the cops, and then on top of that, if they really wanted to push the issue, they can place terrorism charges on you. Average Construction says, I completely agree with that take on the Marine, 1,000%. Okay, so there you go, right? He had no right to do this. And also, here's another thing that I need you guys to understand, right? Not everybody who served in the military is a noble person. Is that shocking news to you guys? Oh my God, he said what? Bro, let me tell you something, man. The type of things that I heard some Marines say and some Marines do, okay, would absolutely appall a lot of you guys, okay? I've heard Marines talk about how they were okay with, let's say, you know, doing things with a minor. I've heard Marines say that. I've seen Marine recruiters, as a matter of fact, date younger age girls, okay? During the time when I was in a DEP program back in 2003, I've seen it, okay? I've seen a Marine who came home, okay, assisted in the recruiter's office, right? He was a Marine vet, and he was in the, he wasn't an official recruiter, but, you know, he hung around the recruiting offices, and he helped the main recruiters that were there. And what did he do? He went after 16-year-old girls. So this idea that, you know, Marines or people that served are good people, you need to understand that they're just people that were doing their jobs. And then also, here's another thing that I really don't understand, right? I don't understand when you people say, thank you for your service. To me, that right there is absolutely weird. He says, you're right, they are weird as F, Vimit 3, all weird as F, cucks, Billy says. By the way, not to be a grammar Nazi or anything, but your is spelled you and then apostrophe RU, because you are talking to me as you are right. So your is, anyways, yes, there's just a little, you know, spelling issue there, but it's all right. I understand what you mean, no problem. He says, wow, I'm being censored. What exactly are you being censored by? I'm sorry, I did not see what you wrote, but if you're being censored, then please understand that it is YouTube that's doing that, and you know my policy on this channel. You're allowed to say what you want to say within the guidelines of what is allowed. So he says, my massacre in, oh, okay, the massacre in Vietnam. He says, thanks, I missed the grammar error. No problem, no problem. Just helping you out, buddy. You know what I mean? Just helping you out. I'm sure you guys would help me out as well if I made an error of some sort. But yeah, look, I don't understand this term, or I'm sorry, this idea that you have to thank every Marine for their service, because the truth of the matter is not every single one of them deserve your thank you. And here's another thing, right? If you were to thank fire department chief or your local firefighters, let's say helping a cat out of a tree, right? I remember I was playing GTA the other day, and you could play these little odd job missions, right? You could play as a firefighter, and I thought this was pretty cool. And one of the missions that you do there, you have to rescue a cat, right? You got to rescue a cat in one of these, you know, in one of these missions, these firefighter missions in GTA. I thought it was pretty cool, right? And then in the end, there's this NPC who's a lady that's thanking you for, you know, saving the cat. And obviously these things happen in real life firefighter work. And if you thank the firefighter for saving your cat or saving you out of your burning home or saving you out of a burning building, I understand the term when you say, thank you for your service, right? Stipe Miocic, Ohio guy, former world champion of the world in the UFC, firefighter. If you went up to him and said, hey, Stipe, thank you for your service, that is more understandable than if you were to say, hey, Stipe, thank you for your service in the UFC. He did no favors for you as being the world champion, okay? He did no favors for you whatsoever. Let's get that right. And another thing, no Marines did you any favors by serving in the Marine Corps. You need to understand that off the bat, okay? They did it for, okay, maybe patriotic reasons, maybe reasons of ideological zeal towards patriotism in the United States and patriotism towards God, country, and honor and things of that nature. That is understandable, but they did not do it for you, okay? You guys need to understand that when Marines go out to fight in wars, number one, they are doing it for the military-industrial complex. Let's get that straight. And another thing, they're not fighting for you, okay, a random guy in Idaho or random guy in Florida or random guy in California, New York, or name whatever part of the world or whatever part of the United States you are, and you could even say part of the world. They are doing it for the buddies that they are in there for because the military-industrial complex stuck them into that situation to do what it is that they need to do. Says Billy says, yeah, and I agree. They walk around expecting compliments. Where I'm from, they are clowns. Yes, that is the thing. You, first of all, let me tell you why I joined, right? One of the reasons why I joined was one of the things that the recruiters got me was like, hey, it says here you were born in Libya. I said, yeah. So he said, did you know that the U.S. Marines first overseas expedition into the Muslim world was in Libya? And they told me a story about the sword that they give to NCOs and officers, right? That sword that you see the Marines hold, right? That is a Libyan sword. Did you know that? It was a Libyan sword that was given by one of the Libyan princes to help him, get this, fight his own brother who was in the throne, and he had the help of European mercenaries and U.S. Marines to take over back his country. And I said, wow, this is amazing. This is absolutely amazing because you know what? Like, I said to myself, wow, I was born in that part of the world. And this is where the Marines were born in terms of overseas expedition under the orders of Thomas Jefferson, right? So I thought, wow, this is absolutely beautiful history. So in all honesty, did I really do it for the United States, or I did it for your service, or I did it to protect you? No, I did it for my own personal ego. Because you know what? I was like, wow, I was born in Libya. This is, you know, and it says so in the song, right? The song of the Marine Corps hymn goes, from the shores of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we will fight our country's battles in the air, land, and the sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. And you know the rest. So he says, I disagree at hate. Neither are gangs. Marines are there for more selfish reasons. Cops are mostly cops because they hope to serve and protect. Okay, so that makes sense, right? If a cop helps you from getting killed by, let's say, a rapist, or let's say, a gunman, or maybe even a school shooter, you have the right to say thank you for your service. But when you say thank you for your service for the Marines, you know, man, you're not getting any service from them. I'm sorry, but you're not. Now, there is a time where a Marine can actually help you. And I told you guys, if you're stuck overseas, okay, and you need the help of the U.S. Embassy, Marines can absolutely help you, because guess who is attached to U.S. embassies, right? Whenever you go to, what do you call it? An embassy, there's a Marine right there standing in attention, okay, right in front of the U.S. Embassy, standing attention, and they are there to serve you. If, let's say, you have problems with the local government or this and that, you can always rely on the U.S. Embassy to help you, right? And then, of course, there's CIA that's attached to these embassies, posing as diplomats. But mostly, their armed security in embassies are U.S. Marines, first and foremost, right? So there is a chance that they can protect you. But if they're going out to fight in Iran, or if they're going out to fight in, in Somalia or this and that, they're not there to serve you guys. I'm sorry to tell you, that's just the reality of it. Let's get to these comments real quick, and then we'll continue on. Let's see here. So, okay. He says, Billy says, I don't get offended. Thank you. Okay, that was from correcting the grammar. He says, at H1, it just happened to me. I said something about Israel and it got shot. Okay, so that's what you guys are talking about when you guys are getting censored. Okay, he says, exactly. That's why I got to spell like I'm typing with my toes. Got it. Okay, Billy says, and I agree. They walk around expecting compliments. Where I'm from, they are clowns. By the way, Billy, what part of the United States you are from? I'm curious to know. Probably a very conservative red state of some sort. So let me know on that. He says, most Marines I see don't like to be reminded of their service. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Even great people sometimes don't want to be reminded. Billy says, the only ones I thank sometimes are the old ones that actually went to war. Well, it's not like Marines from the War on Terror era or the modern Marines right now didn't go to war. It's just that what I think you're trying to say is that they went to war against the Nazis and the Japanese, which seem to have a very clear and present reality to what they were fighting for and what they were fighting about. Now, when you're dealing with a war on terror, when you're dealing with the fact that there is a lot of pro-Muslim sentiments in the world right now due to the Muslim influence, not only through MMA, not only through boxing, not only through Saudi Arabia, but just overall the cultural influence that we now are obtaining in, in American and Western culture, it kind of blurs the lines of, all right, you know what, is this really a good idea that you're over there bombing my my neighbor Ahmed's cousin in Iraq or something like that, right? So it kind of, blurs those lines a little bit into modern times, right? H1 says, I have once said to a firefighter, and he said and looked at me, okay, there's also prejudice in that department too. Huh? What do you mean by that? Are you saying that you thanked a firefighter before? Thank you for your service, and he looked at you sideways? I mean, that, like I said, right, if firefighters, if anything, first responders, EMT guys, your nurses, okay, they are, essentially people that you should really be thanking for their service. And of course, if you thank a nurse for their service, they're going to repay you with a big bill of, you know what I mean? Especially if you don't got insurance. But Hate Love says, yeah, at H1, yeah, they all in their own gang, just like the police is the biggest gang in the world. Yeah, that's right. Tupac has mentioned that before, right? He says the army ain't nothing but a gang. The police ain't nothing but a gang. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Tupac obviously, had mentioned something like that. He says, you see someone with a handle mustache, they're not keen with the melanin. Okay, that's interesting. H1 says, damn, but valid. H1 says, yeah, man, patterns aren't coincidental. And Marty says, you always keep it real, Kyrie. Boom. That's right, man. That's right. Always keep it real, even if it's, talking about Marines, even if it's talking about gang members, even if it's talking about Muslims, even if it's talking about anything that I am, tied to, or this and that, or whatever group or whatever people that I know or whatever people I trained with, I always keep it real. And, there's no biasness about it. And by the way, there's so much no biasness in me that I believe that TJ Dillashaw is the greatest 135-pounder of all time. And if you think otherwise, then you are just biased, okay? So there it is, right? Greatest 135er of all time, TJ Dillashaw, and of course, Uriah Faber. Average Construction Donkey says, I disagree. I'd hate neither are gangs. Marines are there mostly for selfish reasons. Cops are mostly there to serve and protect. Yes, LOL. What? He says first responders are the real MVP. And H1 says usually it's the fire department's first respond. Average Construction says, I don't know where this whole anti-cop sentiment comes from. In true, the arguments I've seen that are anti-cop have not been very strong. Well, look, I can tell you where a lot of anti-cop sentiments are, right? I'll tell you this, right? As a Muslim and as somebody who, knows people that are a part of that life, right? I can never get down with the police, right? Now, it doesn't mean that I hate the police. It doesn't mean that I have any beef with the police or anything like that. That's just the reality of the situation. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you this, right? I've had homies that I grew up with that became cops. This is no big deal. Not a big deal at all. But nowhere under any circumstances am I going to talk to my cops that are homies and talk to them about hood business, nor would they even talk to me about criminal investigations pending on God knows who that's in my circle, right? They don't have to tell me that. I don't got to tell them anything. We can live our lives training together in the same gym or, maybe even having a cup of coffee together, but that's about it, right? But they got to be my homies first if they're going to be cops. Otherwise, I'm not just going to befriend a cop for no apparent reason. Now that's the street side of it. The Islamic side of it, you have to understand that as Muslims, we believe that it is only Allah that can, basically render laws to man, right? And the police and the system in and of itself is antiquatedly opposite to that. So that is where my ethos lies in that particular matter. Now, it does not mean that being anti-cop means that I'm going to go out of my way to make a cop's life a living hell or this and that. No, of course not. If I get pulled over, which I've been pulled over several times for speeding or traffic violations, I absolutely cooperate. I don't say anything that I don't need to say. And if they're going to give me a ticket, I go to court and I fight those cases. And guess what? So far, with all the cases that I've gotten when it comes to traffic violations, I'm 10 out of 10 and, been undefeated, and they weren't able to defeat me in that particular regard. So Hate Love says, average, are you from the U.S.? I'm from the UK. It's gang mentality from what I've seen in real life and online and in the news. He says, my friend was in the army and his GF ended up cheating on him. Oh, and got pregnant by another. So he is now depressed and alcoholic and should have finished college. You know what? Here's the thing, right? I know a lot of Marines that have gone through this. I got a homeboy. By the way, he popped in, the chat one time, right? His name's TJ Peterson, right? He told me, a former Marine buddy of mine, we grew up in New Jersey together. We went to the Marines together and this and that. But he had a fellow Marine who was a love interest of his. Guess what? She got raped by her commanding officer, but that's another story for another time. And he was also cheated on, and obviously, it absolutely devastated him. I mean, look, this dude, TJ, was an absolute, Captain America to the fullest, right? You know what I mean? Like, this is one thing that I really admired about the guy. He was like a real Captain America-like figure. I mean, really, like when we were younger, he was an absolute stud of a man. You know what I mean? Just an absolute chat of a human being. And, was really all about, I love being around that guy because, he made me proud to be a Marine. He made me proud to be an American, right? And we were, real buddies, as a result of that. But these occurrences in the Marine Corps ruined him, among many other things that ruined him in there as well, as you would imagine. He says, that's interesting, of course, because you trained him. Huh, okay, what is that in reference to, Victory? Let me know. Hate Love says, Billy, that's messed up. He will one day realize he is better off without her. Okay, so that's obviously the comment from that. Billy says, can you tell us a story when someone tried to punk you and it went bad for him? Oh, man. For another time, it kind of blows the context out of the topic that we're talking about. But of course, I would love to tell these stories. As you would imagine, I've gotten, plenty of stories like this. We'll save that for another time. And then the average construction donkey says, I feel like the religious belief is rather flawed. An ancient God that has no clue about modern world, how we should follow the laws made by him if he lacked the information that is needed to make laws. Well, here's the thing. What you got to understand about the Quran and what I believe about, the Quran, that's a proven fact, by the way. It has been proven to stand the test of time, right? The Quran has talked about the embryo that is going on in a woman's womb before we could even have ultrasound. The Quran has talked about how one part of the sea is salty, right, and the other part of the sea is not, and then there's a line in the ocean where the colors are divided, right, from, one ocean to another. The Quran has mentioned this before there were even explorers out there to explore the scientific ecological fact. So there's a lot of, what did he say here? George says, hey there, Devil Dog, the camera is too high and the chat is covering your mug. Okay, there, okay. How about this? I think a little better right here, right? Yeah. It kind of looks like my face is being covered up like I'm wearing a buff clava or something. He says, can you please give us just one story? It's because I got punked yesterday and I wasn't even looking for trouble. I'm signing up for kickboxing tomorrow. Okay, well, there's one story I can tell you right now had absolutely nothing to do with my martial arts skills. It had actually to do with a group of guys that, helped me out. So, okay, I will say this, right, in, I believe my 24th birthday, right? I had a birthday in Stockton, okay? And while I was there, I had a group of guys, that I've known to frequent with, in Stockton. One guy that I did not like came to my birthday party. I didn't like him. I didn't even know him from a can of paint, but I was really annoyed by his presence, right? Long story short, right, he said something disrespectful to me. Next thing you know, one guy, boom, punches him. Another guy punched him. He got packed out right in front of everybody. And I'll tell you what, that was the first time in my whole entire life where I felt like Suge Knight. Okay, because here I am, I grew up in New Jersey. Okay, I grew up fighting black dudes, Puerto Ricans, Italians, Jamaicans, you name any type of race that was, in New Jersey. I've fought all of them in a street fight. By the way, by myself. I was never in a gang in the East Coast, right? Because, I don't know, I just, it's not that culture over there. Stockton was different, though. Obviously, everyone in Stockton is in a gang at some capacity. Otherwise, you are either the police or either you're a weirdo. He says, fan-fucking-tastic, Devil Dog, Semper Fi. Yes, shout out to you, George. George, you served as well. Let me know what was your MOS, by the way, my man. But yeah, shout out to you, my man, and also let me know what part of the United States you are from. He says, average, that's the problem in Islam or the holy book, the Quran, details from ancient times to modern day in the future. Well, look, that's really what it is, right? Like, what happened in the Quran, okay, years ago is the same thing that, happens today, right? Look, there's a reason why there's a high divorce rate in the West, okay? It is because many people have turned away from God. Okay, now, here's the thing. I don't want to criticize other religions, right? But if there is something to be said, I think that Christianity has a high susceptibility to liberalism, okay? Because there's a certain level of acceptance. If you really think about it, there is a one Christian core sentiment that goes something like turn the other cheek, okay? Now, you slap me, I'm going to turn the other cheek. In Islam, you slap me, we're going jihad fi sabilillah on you. Okay, not to make that into, a political jihad or make it into like a religious jihad, but just, a self-induced jihad where I'm going to defend myself and in the name and the act of doing so, not the political or the terroristic side to it. But yes, it is jihad fi sabilillah if you were to slap me in the face and I would not accept it. Whereas a Christian, I think there is a little bit more leniency towards that type of behavior, right? Because it is embedded in that particular culture or at least cultural practice, which, by the way, opens up to a lot of, flawed ideas, right? This is why they say that the Quran, has never been changed because it is spoken in one language. Now, you're allowed to translate the Quran to your own language, whether you speak Russian, whether you speak Dagestani or Chechnyan or Persian or Farsi rather, or whether you speak, okay, you said you train okay, that was the reference when I said TJ, that I'm not biased and that TJ is the greatest 135er of all time. Yes, that's what it is. Kyrie Ludwig is my name. So for those of you that, wonder how is it that I train TJ Dillashaw, because my name is Kyrie Ludwig, okay? There it is, right? Shout outs to, Dwayne Ludwig. Oh my God, man. Dwayne Ludwig. You know, Dwayne Ludwig was accused of, of saying racist things at the gym, right? And look, you got to understand something, right? Uriah Faber is a bit of a liberal. I don't know if you guys know this. He went to college in UC Davis, right? I went to college across that town, which is Sacramento State University. Sacramento State University, yes, all colleges are liberal, but we had, a group of, let's say, right-wing bro boys that were there, right? I remember, I remember during my graduation, these guys were like saying, oh, yeah, we can say whatever we want now. We don't have to, what I mean? These were like straight up right-wing liberal bros. And this was, by the way, 2022, right? I graduated in 2022. I graduated college at 37 years old, right? Because prior to that, I was in the car business. I was doing other things, on top of that. So, yeah. And it took me a really long time to finish college, just by, different life circumstances. But, that's it. Chadish says, Iran or USA? You know what? Here's the thing, right? Okay, this kind of goes into what the average construction donk asked me earlier, right? Have I ever been, what type of street fights I've been into Sacramento, other than like, let's say, gang members or this and that. I've gone into street fights with Iraqi Shia refugees, okay? Because if you look at me, okay, and you're an Iraqi, you're probably thinking to yourself, okay, this guy is a Sunni, straight out, right? So I got into it with them. I called them all types of names because let's just be honest, right? He says he got pulled in the sauna a few weeks ago. Hate Love says that's just shows the lack of knowledge when it comes to religion. Hate Love says, at Chad, what do you mean in general, or are you replying to someone? Greenland says, what a fake deep voice. What a fake deep voice. I don't have a deep voice at all. Right? I mean, there was this one girl the other day that came in here. Her name was Emily. She said that, well, I have a deeper voice than you. I'm like, oh, boy, you're just really putting yourself in a situation to be vulnerable to get attacked. Like, you're saying as a woman, you got a deeper voice than me? What does that tell you about yourself? And I even make fun of myself for doing that. You know who else has, a really squeaky voice? My fellow, Arab-American brother, Myron Gaines, okay? AKA Special Agent Fawad Awad. He's got that kind of voice as well. So imagine if me and him, I always say this, and I find this so funny, right? Imagine if me and him were to fight and we were at a press conference and we're yelling at each other, right? We don't have that DMX type of yelling voice. We don't have a Jerry Prohachka type of voice, right? If we were to yell at each other, it would sound like this. Oh, oh, oh. Right? Whereas if Jerry was to yell at you, he would yell at you with the deep, most thunderous, Viking voice ever. He would go, I'm coming! And then you hear Jamal Hill in the background go, yeah, that's what she said. Mm-hmm. All right, so he says, I'm USA all the way. Yes, so I am USA all the way as well, right? Because obviously, look, I'm not a big fan of the Shias, right? But at the same time, I'm also not a fan of this war. But at the same time, I'm also not going to do what this gentleman did right here, which was literally interfere a whole entire hearing only for these cops to, harass him in this kind of matter. Let's take a look at this photo once again.
Israel is the reason for this war. America does not want to fight this war for Israel. Let's go. Come on, let's go. America does not want to send its sons and daughters to war for Israel. Your inability to name that shows your exemptness as leaders. This is wrong, and nobody wants to fight for Israel.
Yo, my man got dragged to the floor, bro. Oh, look at the cop right here going for his back right there, Charles Oliveira style. Check this out right here. My man trying to go for the back, Charles Oliveira style. Look at this. Look at this. He's trying to go for the back right here. You see that? Right there. Right there. He's trying to go for his back. Well, you should... Okay, but this is good. Okay, look. Right here. Look, right here. He's got the risk. Okay, this is good. But in order to get this risk, look, you got to do 2-on-1. Okay, you got to go 2-on-1 in that risk. Now, I get it. He had the other body lock, but look, your other buddy had, you know, I mean, look, there were like 3 or 4 guys in there, but yeah, you know, here we go, right here.
Reminder to all our
Commandant, please stand up as a Marine and stand up for America.
Look at that. And then the cop, look at this. The other cop that was running, you know, inside the room. You see that? Right there. You see this guy right here. He's running. He's going to go for his legs right here. He's going to go for his legs. Greenland says Wahhabis are part of the Epstein team. I don't know about that. I mean, look, I would consider myself, you know what a Wahhabi is, right? I actually wrote a college article about this, right? Muhammad al-Wahhab. Muhammad al-Wahhab was an 18th century scholar that revived what you would call today as modern Salafism, right? Which, by the way, a lot of it I kind of resonate with, right? It's a very, did you meet Dwayne? Yes. You know, he frequented, obviously, in Sacramento when he was here, you know, training with TJ. Great guy. But obviously, what I was saying earlier was that Uriah sort of, you know, kind of went social justice warrior on him because, you know, Uriah went to the public, okay? He went to the Ariel Helwani show, and he said that Dwayne Ludwig was making fun of the black guys in the gym. And I know exactly what Uriah was talking about. Whenever there were white girls in the gym, right, there is, you know, a few black guys that we trained with in there, and he would say, hey, all the black guys here, get away from the white girls, or something like that, right? Like, you know, this is just banterous stuff that he talks about. And look, let me tell you something, guys. There's a lot of different types of jokes that I would make with you guys in private that I would never do in camera, okay? There's just some jokes that I will never do in front of the camera, you know, as a result of that. So, yeah, just, you know, kind of wanted to throw that in there. He says, at average, go look back at the live streams with the live chat replay and then learn to read. Okay, I guess you guys are having a bit of some conversations there about, you know, certain things. So let's see here. All right, man. Shout outs to the 124 people around the world that have tapped in so far. So this is good stuff. Okay, so all right, let's hear what other people had to say about this, because you guys heard my stance on this Marine crashing out, right? First of all, here's another thing that I just don't understand, right? This guy is not an active Marine, okay? I don't understand why guys have this obsession of wearing their uniform when they are no longer in the Marine Corps. Now, look, I understand maybe if there's, you know, a ballroom going on or this and that, or, you know, or maybe if there's some sort of special occasion. But look, I swear to you, I would not wear my dress blues, okay, with my beard looking like some Middle Eastern dictator, okay? Like, there is no way I would ever wear my dress blues ever in my life, okay? Especially now that I have a beard, it would just look weird. First of all, I would look like a Middle Eastern dictator wearing a Marine Corps uniform with my, you know, beard like this. I would look like Ramzan Kadyrov, for crying out loud. Okay, that's one. Okay, number two, if you're no longer that, you cannot claim it like you live it, you know, today. You can only talk about your experience, what you've seen, what you've done, to the extent of what you can talk about, at least. You know what I mean? But other than that, it doesn't make sense. It really does not make sense for people to, you know, still fake the funk and pretend like they are still in there. Now, look, I remember Suge Knight. He said in an interview one time, right? He said, you know, if you were once a football player, you're always a football player. I understand what he means by that, but at the same time, you are no longer, you know, a New York Jet. You are no longer a New England Patriot. You are no longer a Minnesota Viking. You got to learn to let go. Okay, now Tom Brady, he said it best. Okay, he said it best to Logan Paul, or Jake Paul, rather. Was it Logan Paul or Jake Paul? I think Logan Paul. He said, you know what, I won multiple Super Bowls, but it doesn't matter what you did before, it's what you do today. And that's really what it is. He said, is it true that Obama is getting arrested for treason? Well, you know what, that is a possibility, but I highly doubt it. You know, because you know how it is, man. Elites in this country get away with a lot of things, but then again, you never know. Okay, Anthony Serrano says a football player doesn't put his life on the line to defend our country. No, he doesn't. But here's the thing, right? Here's what I don't like, Anthony. And by the way, you brought up something that I thought was worth bringing a conversation about. I hate it when people say that, oh, I can't believe sports stars make more money than, military people. Yeah, they make more money than military people because guess what? More people are interested in what they do. I'm sorry, but that's just what it is. More people are going to be, he says, that's embarrassing. They have no idea what they're doing. That is in regards to what, Victory? Let me know. But look, sports stars make more money for a reason. There's more eyeballs behind it. You also got to understand that the Marines or service people, they are doing it for the glory, and not only that, ideological, motivations, right? That is their whole entire premise of why they do it, for ideological motivations. Okay, not to be famous or not to be, or anything like that. It kind of goes like this, right? I heard a jihadi preacher talk about this one time, right? He said that this jihadi preacher, by the way, his name is Anwar al-Awlaki, right? He was the former Al-Qaeda commander that got bombed in Yemen, who, by the way, has an American citizenship, but is of Yemeni descent. He grew up in America, grew up in San Diego. So Anwar al-Awlaki, let me know on the chat if you guys remember who Anwar al-Awlaki is on the comment section below. Write one, okay, if you remember who Anwar al-Awlaki is. So Anwar al-Awlaki said that if you are fighting jihad, right, you should not be doing it to be famous. You're not doing it to be famous. You're doing it for the sake of Allah. Now, why do I say that? Because it also goes for the other side. If you are fighting as a Marine or if you are fighting as a serviceman, you're not doing it to be famous. You're doing it for God, honor, and country. So in conclusion, what I'm telling you is that when it comes to jihadis and when it comes to U.S. service members or just service members around the world, they are literally fighting for the same thing, right? They are fighting for God, honor, and country. If you really think about it, right? It just depends on what side you are on. He says, oh, so that's what started it all, Dwayne making black jokes. Yes, obviously, look, well, here's the thing, right? It's selective politics, Victory, okay? Think about this, right? Would Uriah have mentioned this had Dwayne Ludwig not moved to Colorado and brought TJ there while TJ was a world champion, basically snatching a world champion away from your gym, very similar to how Eddie Hearn, got Conor Benn snatched from him through Dana White and TKO, right? Like it's selective politics, right? Same thing with Eddie Hearn when Conor Benn got snatched from Matchroom. What does Eddie Hearn say? Eddie Hearn says something to the effect of, well, Conor Benn was never really a world-class athlete or a world-class fighter. Of course he wasn't a world-class fighter. He was a nepotism baby whose dad was a legendary fighter, and as a result, all the British public was interested to see him fight. He says, gave an entire monologue on white guilt and how bad he suffers from it. Okay, you're talking about Uriah Faber? Well, you know what? Listen, bro, there's a lot of guys in the gym that say a lot of worse things, but you know what? Uriah Faber has never really went after them, and the good reason for that is indicative of the fact that, well, they stayed loyal to him. We had this lighter named Casey Uscola. Do you guys know who Casey Uscola is? He was in the Ultimate Fighter during the Tito Ortiz versus Chuck Liddell Ultimate Fighter, right? He was in there with Nick Ring. Nick Ring is also a guy that I've came across as well. He was good friends with Casey Uscola. We used to joke around about how Casey Uscola was like the racist white guy in our team, right? We used to joke about that. But Uriah never, went and publicly bashed him, and that's indicative of the fact that maybe he just wasn't a high-profile fighter, even though he had fought Chael Sonnen at some point, had fought a lot of high-profile people as well, Gegard Mousasi, but he wasn't high-profile enough for Uriah to mention, and he never stepped on Uriah's toes, so there it goes. Anthony, I'm going to read your comment here, and I'm going to read your comment up top because I know you had another comment. He says, athletes, again, they live so differently than the average person who serves this country. Correct, you're right, but you have to remember, right, that is their choice to serve the country, and quite frankly, an athlete is in high demand of, of watching them play. And then there's no political attachments to it. So everybody's going to love the athlete more than, let's say, the soldier who may be fighting for, some kind of political cause. Okay, so Anthony says, Anthony Serrano, my father was a Marine, served in Korea, and he was my idol. Man, shout out to your dad, brother. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to your dad on that one. Obviously, I had on my Filipino side of the family, I've had U.S. service in the Army, right? My grandfather on my Filipino side of the family has fought in Korea as well. So, yeah, man, shout out to you on that. Yes, it's all about money. Correct. That's what it is by the end of the day. Because remember, what the United States is all about, it's all about capitalism, right? It is all about if you have a product that people like and people can appreciate, then that product is going to be marketed. And not only will that product be marketed, that product will be, will be rewarded. And, and you can argue and say, well, okay, maybe the service people are the ones that, sort of protect that, right? Now, going back to what I was saying about when I said that, I'm not a person that trusts the police or this and that because of the religious, ideological setting that I have. Within that ideological setting, you also have to understand that, I have, an order of protection in terms of, my wealth being protected in this country, right? My dignity being protected in this country, meaning that if somebody was to, let's say, I don't know, copyright violate me, right? Use, some sort of content that I use, I have the right to sue that person. And that is the order of protection that America offers me, as a Muslim. But it doesn't mean that I have to participate in, political matters or matters that may be displeasing to Allah as a result of that. So, just to kind of give some context on that situation. Average says, I feel like religion is one of the largest dividers between people, very little to give to society. Well, look, Donkey, Construction Donkey, the reason why you feel that way is because, look, this is going to be very politically incorrect to say, but, you are the pure definition of an infidel, right? And you know that you are. There's nothing, I mean, you know that you are. You are an infidel because you do not believe in God. You don't think religion has a place for anything. But I would argue that religion prevents women from being whores. It prevents men from being serial killers. It prevents men from being sociopathic individuals that will serve no justice to anybody. And look, you got to understand. Even though I'm not a Christian, I can still vouch for the idea that America is a Christian country founded by Christian beliefs. And within those Christian beliefs, there's many beliefs that sort of intertwine with us, right? Which is, in God we trust, right? That is the motto in the United States, or the ethos of the United States. In God we trust. Well, as a Muslim, I sort of vouch for that idea as well. Also, another thing that you got to understand, right? You got to understand that when it comes to, the ethos of the United States, right? Their aspect is God, what is it? God, honor, and country, or God, country, and honor. Or is it country, God? But whatever order that you place it, I place God first, right? That's number one. Number two, for me, is country. Well, family, right? Obviously, because you have to take care of your family. So it's God, family, and then country last, because, ultimately, if you live in a place, you want that place to be clean. You want to be able to cooperate with, let's say, the local municipal, parties that are involved, let's say with your sanitation, or your garbage, or your fire departments, to keep everybody in safety. But yeah. He says, but it got deleted, so it's not my fault. Okay, there's a lot of messages that seem to be deleted here. Ali Khan says, Ayatollah made the greatest sacrifice. Okay, well, that is your opinion on that particular matter. You know how I feel about the Shias. I'm not a big fan of the Shia, but at the same time, I'm not a fan of this war, because I don't want to see American lives, ruined as a result of it. We don't need to send our sons and daughters to go out there. So yeah, he says, goodbye, Hussein. Average Construction Donkey says, yes, I definitely am. You know what? I'm glad that you said that. All right, because when I call people infidels, right, they think like, oh my God, I can't believe you called me an infidel. Well, you are. And then next thing you know, some people would want to call the FBI on me for calling them an infidel. Well, you are. I'm like, do you not believe it? Do you believe in God or do you not believe in God? And then they'll say, well, no, I don't believe in God. Okay, well, then you're an infidel. I'm like, what's wrong with that? I'm like, how is that attached to terrorism or radicalism in any kind of way, right? There's nothing radical about that or extreme about that. What it is just fundamentalism. That's really what it is. I believe in the fundamentals of Islam, and if you don't believe in God, the oneness of God and his messengers, then what are you? You're an infidel. So thank you for at least confirming, exactly what you are. And, obviously you don't take that as an insult, but people take it as an insult as some sort of way, like as if I'm gangbanging on them, like I'm a terrorist or something, right? But yeah. You understand. Hate Love says, but it got deleted, so okay. Average Construction says, I personally disagree. Okay, you have the right to do that. Most of my friends are non-believers. Okay, so you hang out with a bunch of infidels. He says, I feel like religion doesn't make good people. Well, you may not think so, but, I obviously do, right? I think that if I wasn't a Muslim, I would probably be a sociopathic killer, to be quite honest with you. You know what I mean? Because I have the personality, I have the upbringing that, has reached me to that point. But, due to Islam, there are just certain things that I will not do due to the religious rules and guidelines that I live by. I'm a very abrasive person. I'm a very aggressive person. If I didn't have Islam, I would be absolutely out of control, right? Kamzat Shemaev would absolutely be out of control if he did not have Islam, right? But because he has Islam, he does a lot of great things, like during the Gerald Mershad fight, right? And Fight Week when he was in Vegas, there was a video of him giving money, to a homeless person. You know what I mean? And so, in the type of personality that Kamzat Shemaev has, if he wasn't a Muslim, he probably would not do that, right? A strong, a hard-willed individual like him would probably say, oh, you know what, you put yourself in this position, so therefore I'm not going to help you. But the fact that he's a Muslim, well, it sort of, rearranges his mind into, certain things. And here's another thing, right? When we pray, this part of your brain right here controls your decision-making. Right? So every time I'm praying and every time I'm putting my head to the ground, this is actually training my part of the brain to make the right decisions. So there's a scientific reasoning behind religion and the act of, of religious fundamentalism, right? And also, you got to remember, Jesus prayed the same way. If you look at the Bible, they will tell you that he prostrated on the ground, put his forehead to the ground, very similar to that of the Muslims. Even Jewish rabbis pray in the same similar fashion, because once again, all of this comes from the Abrahamic monotheistic traditions that guide our lives in a very positive way. And you may not agree, and that's perfectly okay. Religion is not for you. You grew up in a different part of the world. You have a different settings and how you look at the world. Perfectly fine. He says, how many Americans got killed when Europeans landed? Do you honestly think that rich Europeans played fair like history claims? No, of course not. They definitely did it. But here's another thing, right? Europeans are really no different than Arab Muslims who have conquered the world. Okay, here's the thing, right? I do not apologize for my Muslim ancestors taking over Dagestan or Chechnya or other parts of the outside the Arab world that became a Muslim, because guess what? Had they not become Muslim, I think that they would have been worse off, right? I think that their culture and whatever it is that they, stand by, they would have been worse off, and that is my belief. So I have no apologies for colonialism when it comes to Islamic conquest. Now, with the Europeans, that's a different set of politics, right? If there are people who are Eurocentrists or people who are white nationalists that feel that same way, okay, you have that claim and you have that right to feel that way, but that's just not my side, and I'm just not going to get down with European colonialism. But I'm going to say yes to Arab and Muslim colonialism, which, by the way, really brought a strong factor to the world. Let's take a look at Indonesia, for example, right? A lot of these people were pagans before the Muslims had came in there. Had the Muslims not come in there, right, the aspect of prostitution, the aspect of, drug use in Indonesia would be very high if they were not Muslim, indicative of what you see in other countries, in Europe. So there it is. Average Construction Daily says it's completely okay. Glad that the misunderstanding cleared up. Yeah, of course, man. This is what we're all about here, is to have a political, discourse, religious discourse, and the disagreements that we have. Nico Bellic says, if John Jones and Demetrius Johnson were the same size, who would win the fight? I would think Demetrius Johnson, considering the fact that Demetrius Johnson is just a far more skilled fighter than that of John Jones, and I think that he would have, some serious problem with that. Vove says, don't talk about Jesus, heretic. Okay, well, that's your opinion. We're going to talk about whatever we're going to talk about. There's a lot of people in this chat that say things I don't like, but I let them say it as long as they don't disrespect me. But when it comes to speaking about other ideas and things of that nature, we're not going to, hold back on it. The Average Construction says, of course, Muslim is an extreme, Christian. I shouldn't have worded it differently, LOL. And then there's a person with a Jesus Christ name. Okay, that's kind of weird. You're calling yourself Jesus Christ. You know what? Since you're calling yourself Jesus, I'm getting rid of you. I'm just going to get rid of you out of the chat, okay? That's it. I'm not going to deal with this blasphemy stuff, during Ramadan, so off you go, right? How dare you, name yourself after, one of the greatest prophets of all time? So there it is, man. Shout out to UFC fan on the bottom. UFC fan, giving money to the poor seems generous at first, but Kamzat may have made a dumb mistake. These homeless people get into substance abuse using that money given to them. So here's the thing, right? Here's the Islamic belief that we have on this, right? When we give money to a person, right, that is up to Allah. I can't broadcast my charity as a Muslim, but, hypothetically speaking, if I was to give charity to someone, okay, I do not expect them to even thank me. I don't need you to thank me. I'm doing it for Allah. And that is the proper thing that a Muslim should say. If you give money to someone, it doesn't matter what they use it for. It is your intention that Allah, cares about. Now, if you really want to be meticulous and make sure that the money goes to the right place, obviously you would need to do this if, let's say, you were to investigate certain charities or certain organizations that say they are upon something when they really aren't. So these are things that you have to really understand. But yes, you have to be very careful about what organization you give your charity to. But if you're doing an individual charity to a random person in the street, this is between you and Allah. And remember, Allah will reward you the same. At least that is within the beliefs of our Islamic core principles. Victory says, I love all these people that give to the homeless, but make sure to film it so they can make money off of views. So genuine, LOL. You know what? I don't like that either, right? I know someone who goes to the Philippines, right, and gives money to the poor out there. I vehemently confronted him on it, and I told him, listen, if you're going to do that, stop filming it. And you know what his excuse was? His excuse was, oh, well, I'm out here to inspire others or this and that. Look, in all honesty, you don't need to inspire others for others to know that there's poor people out there to give money to. That's just my take on it. The Average Construction Donkey says, I believe the idea of putting these people in large, vague groups is not very good for the world. It makes you generalize. For example, all the homeless people are addicts. Yes, I completely agree. Generalization is, is not good. UFC fan says, but you are ruining lives using your money. Sometimes homeless people are who they are because of their addictions and actions. You know what? You're right about, again, maybe generalization on your part, but once again, there is, different aspects to, why people are homeless, right? There are people who don't even use drugs at all, but are homeless for whatever reason. Okay, guys, I'm going to head out right now. I just wanted to come in here and really react to this, Marine. I'm going to come back in the afternoon. I'm going to read off a couple of comments, and then I'm going to head out, okay? The Average Construction says, UFC fan, many homeless people aren't addicts, though, but I see where you are coming from. There you go, yes. And Rank of All, right? First time I've seen you here, let me know what part of the world you are from. He says, reality is a moral stress test, okay? It was never meant to be real. It was meant to reveal the game. Live life with free will. The stakes the stakes who you become when no one's watching. There it is, right? And that is also a core Islamic belief that we have, is that, you do things for Allah, and you do things to, you do things for the sake of Allah and not for the sake of fasiyah, right? Which in Arabic means showing off, right? We don't do things for fasiyah or anything like that. We do things for the sake of Allah and for Allah to accept our good deeds. Victory says, have a good day, brother. He says, I'll be seeing you around. Have a good one. Come back in the afternoon, guys. I will be back in the afternoon. We're going to talk some UFC and a whole bunch of other geopolitical topics as well. He says, at average, I hope to see you again, but I'll not make the same mistakes again. Hate Love says. All right, guys. Thank you to all the moderators. Thank you to all the chat. Thank you to everybody around the world that has tapped in. I will be back once again. And yes, Victory says, Nate's fighting Saturday. Shout outs to Nate Davies from Victory Gym of Ohio. And obviously we also got UFC 326 this weekend. Vo says, the mods suck. No, that's just your subjective opinion on that matter. I happen to think they're awesome, but there it is. If you want to be a mod, I tell you what, come back on the next live stream. Prove yourself to me, and let's see if you can do better than them or as equally good, in my humble opinion. And with that in mind, God bless everybody. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One more comment. He says, I'm not generalizing, but homeless people, especially in the U.S., tend to get into substance abuse. Stats supported too. All right. Well, that right there can't be denied, but also we got to understand that there are various nuances to these things. So there it is, guys. Have a good one. See ya in a couple of hours, inshallah.